This is the MHFI podcast with Carl Jensen and Doug Cunnington. We have authentic conversations about the journey to FI, health, happiness, and some very odd tangents. We interview FI experts, side hustlers, people on their way to FI, and those who have reached the other side. Join us every week, and if you want the show notes and links and all that other stuff, head over to milehighfi.com. Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Mile High Fi podcast. My name's Doug Cunnington, and Carl's out today, out sick again. I don't think he's actually sick. He sounded fine when he called me, but we have a co-host today, Jake Simon. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Doug?
Doing awesome today. It's always sad when Carl calls in sick, but like I said, I think he's all right. He's probably swinging a hammer somewhere.
Yeah, I thought I saw him walking over to his other house with a tool bag.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I was wondering like what the equipment noise was in the background when he called me up, but he should just send a text. You know, why is he calling me? How old is this guy?
Well, he might not know whether he's texting or calling because his texts are all voice texts anyways, so...
Yeah, so today we're talking something exciting, credit card points and travel rewards and the approach that I have and the approach that Jake has. And I think there's going to be some contrast, and I know people really do a good job optimizing around these. And I have some friends, Trip of a Lifestyle, Lauren and Steven, who have done like credit card churning where they actually, get tons and tons of credit cards and get bonuses and all that stuff. So we'll kind of look at a couple different areas. Now, before we get to it, Jake and I, we're neighbors, we're friends. We were hanging out the other day having a beer at a local watering hole around here. And I was like, Jake, I wonder, have you had any good beers lately? So what's been going on in your beer drinking world?
I haven't had any amazing beers to speak of, but when we were sitting there, I did have an oatmeal stout. It was a solid oatmeal stout. And I forget, I want to say Weldworks, but they're so into their IPAs and other things, I'm not sure that it was them.
Was it Verboten?
That was the Verboten. You're right. So Verboten was one of my favorite breweries right up in Loveland. So I had one of their oatmeal stouts, and it was great. And that day it was 90 degrees outside. So you actually wanted to go to a different brewery, which I love, their Dunkels. And I said, well, it's kind of hot. I'm going to swing by my favorite place, Shoes and Brews. I'm going to swing by there and grab an IPA quick because I really just wanted some good IPA on that hot day. And then, ended up having that oatmeal stout, and it gets me excited because I'm looking forward. We've got some fall weather coming through here and going into the winter. It's kind of time to transition that beer style. I like all beer, but sometimes I go seasonal, and getting into the winter, it's a good time to start drinking those darker, heavier beers.
Yep. Yeah. I'm seasonal as well, or an activity dependent, right? If you're tailgating, you don't want like the triple IPA that you're going to drink all day. Like Coors Light, maybe the right beer. PBR, I don't know.
Yeah. Squeeze a lime in it, and any of those cheap beers, squeeze a lime in it and I can tolerate it. But those light beers are good on those days, and especially day drinking all day. Those triple IPAs, I've done that before. It doesn't end well.
No, it doesn't. You just wake up somewhere that you're not supposed to be from the blackout.
With someone else's clothes on. It's always weird.
And for me, I haven't had this beer yet, but I recently judged some beer at a competition over in Aurora, and they were giving beers out to the judges who, we volunteer our time. We don't get paid for it or anything, so it's a homebrew competition. But this guy has a really amazing cellar, so he has tons and tons of beers. We picked a number, and then he would bring us the number from a box, a case of beer that he brought. You don't know what you're going to get. I ended up with an Avery Mephistopheles, which is an imperial stout. Absolutely amazing. I think it's 16%. I've had it a couple times before, but it's an expensive bottle. You can only buy one bottle, 12-ounce bottle at a time. The kicker, though, is this is from 2006, so it's 16 years old, and it's aged. That's the kind of beer that ages like a wine or even better. So I'm excited to try it sometime.
Yeah, it's always fun to get those uncommon bottles, or especially the aged ones like that. We've had our fair share of different. West Veteran 12 is always popular. You can find it a little easier than even something like that. West Veteran 12 is so sought after, but I can find that a lot easier than you're going to find this 16-year-old bottle.
Crazy.
And then I've got a bunch of Pliny in my fridge right now.
You do?
Well, Pliny and other Russian River brews, because I was out there in California, so I brought a bunch back.
That's right. That stuff goes bad fast. So if you let me know,
I've only got one Pliny. The others are some sours that I think will be pretty good with age.
All right, let's shift into the credit card points and travel rewards. And you know what? I want to open up with any cool trips that you've done in the past by redeeming some kind of reward or points or whatever.
When it comes to points, I've used a tremendous amount of points, which we'll get into. But when it comes to booking for points, I have not done a really cool or anything special with points in the past. We've done some nice weekend trips, but I did just book something kind of special and frivolous. We're going to New York City over Thanksgiving as a family. I've been there once when I was in high school. My wife's never been there. She grew up dancing, doing ballet and jazz. My kids have never been there. So my wife and kids are really excited to go. And that's one where I spent 38,000 points on Southwest per flight. And during COVID, that would have got me 10 flights to Ohio. So this is just a massive amount of points, more than I'm used to spending. But I booked the flight and the Hilton hotel right downtown Manhattan. So this is a trip that'll be pretty much all on points. So that is kind of a future trip that's points based, and we're really excited for.
Wow. Yeah, that is pretty awesome, especially like that time of year. I mean, this is a tourist destination for Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
Right?
Macy's Day Parade. I mean, there's probably no worse time to go to New York City if you're trying to do it on the cheap. So hotels are inflated 2-3x, flights are inflated, 5x. So yeah, this is definitely, we could have went next week and spent a tenth of the points, but we're going big. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it right, and we're using points. So
that's awesome. Yeah, and I don't have like a huge grand one, quite that big. Although now that I'm rewinding in my brain, we took a trip. Actually, it was one of Elizabeth and I's first trip together. We went to, we flew across the country to San Francisco. We're doing like a road trip up the West Coast there. So we got first class, which
Nice.
that's one of the few times that I've flown first class. Occasionally back in the day traveling, I'd get upgraded, but this was like, long 5.5 hour flight. Perfect to have first class then. And I forgot, we actually got a nice hotel in San Francisco for a night or two. With points as well from the traveling days. So that is one of the saving graces when you're like traveling for business. You do accumulate a lot of points, and you could like optimize this and that, make sure you get enough legs or enough stays at a particular hotel, switch hotels in the middle of the week. You ever do that nonsense?
Oh yeah, I've done that before, especially when it hits December and you realize you've got 2 or 3 stays until you need to hit that next level of status.
And yeah, that's part of the, obsession that you can get into. And one other thing, like you mentioned, we haven't done any like huge trips super recently, but I have, I think for most of the vacations and like weekend trips to the mountains, I'll redeem points, redeem points for like cash back. So it's just like $1,000 here, a few hundred there to pay for the hotel, or usually an Airbnb, something like that.
Yep.
And just it makes it kind of a free trip. You just pay for gas to get out to the mountains or something.
Right. And, for the trip out to New York, I could have used cash, and then I just save those points, and we would end up using the points. But it feels a lot better to use points, even though if you're going to take the trip either way, it just feels better to use those points sometimes and not use that cash.
Right.
Even though in the end it's a wash, because we're going to take that trip, whether we use for us on that trip, we were going to take it no matter what. Yeah. And all of our travel to Ohio, we're going to go back to see our family twice a year, pretty much no matter what. So
got it. And yeah, let's start talking about how we actually view points and how we accumulate. Actually, let's look at it that way. So talk about your credit cards that you have, and then maybe get into some of the accumulation phase of points.
Yeah. So my daily credit card is Chase Sapphire Preferred. And if people are looking for specific cards, it's just a great one to have. You get decent everyday points, 2x, 3x, depending on what you're spending on. And it's a nice, the point system they're very transferable. One thing important to me is Southwest. We fly a lot, and the Southwest points go a lot farther than any other airline. So, but you could also go to Hyatt, which is you can get great redemptions, and that's a benefit of it. It's also just it's a big national bank. It's an easy card to hold. $90, $100 a year in fees easily pay for itself. So that's a card I hold, and I have I try to keep one other card on hand. I have a business card through Chase as well, but then I keep an Amex on hand because 6% back on certain things in categories is really nice to have. But overall, my daily normal spending, I don't really focus on trying to accumulate points. I do put everything on a credit card, so I certainly accumulate them, but I'm not every day fishing in my wallet for a certain card that I need to use for gas versus groceries versus, going out to eat, utilities, things like that. I take the more simplistic approach of I've got 2 cards and I bounce back and forth between them.
Very similar on my side too. So I think we have a Chase Freedom, which we've had from back in the day. And yeah, it does fine for us. Like you mentioned, we use it for generally all expenses, anything that we can put on that card, like that's what we'll put it on. And the points redemption with Chase is really flexible.
Yeah.
And that we just want to have options. So we actually haven't, well, I don't want to get into the redeeming portion yet. I was about to get ahead of myself, but I also have a business card. I have a Chase Ink, and I think that is about $100 a year.
Yeah.
And I recently got a Chase United card because I knew I was going to be flying a little bit more. And I literally opened it because I knew I was going to be flying, and I knew if I opened a new card, then I could get some additional bonuses for opening a new card. Now, with this particular one, I think it was like the United Business Plus or something like that. And I think it's also $100 a year. But to get the baseline reward, I think you had to spend, say, $5,000 in 3 months or something.
Yep.
But if you hit 20,000, and then you get maybe 75,000 points or something. But if you hit 20,000 in 6 months, then you get 175,000 points total. And I was like, I was looking at my run rates, my expenses and cash flow and all that stuff. And I was like, I can hit 20K in 6 months. So I did that, and I just got like all those points. So I have like 180,000 points or something like that.
Yeah. Plus the points, you get when you're spending. So you had 20,000 points onto that or whatever
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So it turned out great. And yeah, and I, I'm from Atlanta. So we used to fly Delta because that was like the big hub out of there. You can get a lot of airlines out of Atlanta. But I know Southwest, like most people that I know are like, I love Southwest, blah, blah, blah. I don't even know if I've flown it. Is it a little culty, or is it really that great?
It's I wouldn't call it culty, but those that
Sounds
are
like
passionate are
cult.
culty.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Most people that travel on Southwest are frequent travelers, and it's a comfort thing, but also it's a point thing. You rack up points quicker. Your points go farther, but also they board much differently. So your average person doesn't understand the way they board. They don't assign seats. You have a position that you get on a plane. So 180 people get on the plane and they number you essentially. So that's a little bit different. I've got a coworker who calls it Southwest. He hates it, which is one of the few people, we travel a lot, and most people do travel on Southwest that I work with. And he's one that just absolutely hates it. So there's haters out there, but for the most part, anyone that flies it, they jump right into the cult.
Okay. We're going to digress just a little bit. So I have not flown Southwest, and I have heard about the boarding. So they give you a number, and then everybody just runs on the plane. Like, what happens?
So it's A, B, and C boarding, and every A, B, C has 1 through 60. So you line up. They have a nice little posts that line you up very organized. You don't have people crowding into the aisles of the airport, which a lot of airlines end up with just mobs of people. So it is much less chaotic if people know what they're doing during the boarding, which is one reason a lot of people like it. You don't just have a mob of people standing around waiting to get on a plane and call your zone, and then you're fighting when you get on the plane because you've got people that are boarding in the front of the plane and the back of the plane at the same time, and you've got to fight people trying to put their bags up. It's just, if you recognize it for what it is, it's a much more efficient way of boarding a plane. So you have A, B, and C, and you get a number. So let's say you are A1. You're the first person to get on that plane. And then if you have an A, you get to pick your seat. So you're going to end up with a window seat or aisle seat, whatever you want. B is kind of hit or miss. C, if you're boarding the plane as a C stands for center is what they say, because you're going to end up with a center seat. And it's kind of a game where the people are already sitting in a chair. They're trying not to make eye contact. They don't want anyone to sit next to them. So they have headphones in. They're looking at their phone. That way you don't tap them on the shoulder and try to sit next to them, because it's open seating. They could sit wherever they want. If you're a person that is boarding as a C position, you're looking around to find, ooh, there's a, he looks like he's pretty clean. I want to sit next to, him. And, I don't want to deface anyone on how we pick our standards of who we're going. Right. Yeah. But you get to pick who you're going to sit next to if you're not with family.
Okay. Got it. Okay. I'll have to explore that. Maybe
it's unique. It's, those that haven't done it before and don't know what they're getting into. It's definitely different.
It is different. And I would probably be frustrated initially, because I'm like, I don't quite understand how this is going to work. But yeah, the way that other airlines do it is sort of madness, and like depending on like the gate and the people there, right. And like how much like all of a sudden everyone's like trying to get in line, and the people that are supposed to get on in group 2, like they can't get to the
exactly.
To the gate or whatever. Okay, thanks for going down that path. Okay. Have you, how much do you optimize around earning points? So sometimes with various credit cards like groceries or gas or whatever, you earn more points if you use the card for a specific purpose. So do you pay attention to that at all? Yeah,
that's one I don't. To some extent, like I said, I have 2 cards. Into one, I know I can get 6% on groceries. So I try to use that when I'm grocery shopping. But if I don't have it with me, oh well. I have an Amazon card. So that is what's automatically logged into my Amazon. And I get 5% back on any Amazon purchase. So that to me makes sense. I rack up, we spend enough on Amazon. It's worth a couple $100s a year easily over the 2% I might get back on my everyday card, or even 1%. So that's, I'll talk about this when we talk about signing up for new cards, but I kind of draw that threshold of it needs to be $500+ in significance to me for me to even care. If I'm not going to open up a card that gives me 10% back in gas, I buy gas for my vehicle once every 2 months. Even 10% back for gas is insignificant. So I don't care about that. But if I were to drive, 2 hours to work every day, I might care about that, and it would add up to be a little bit more. So there's very few things out there that are going to give me a $500 plus significance in terms of value. So I don't waste my time optimizing it to that extent.
Okay. Yeah, same here. In fact, we're going to do the shopping that we're going to do. So we just like use the card that we're going to use. And Elizabeth may have an Amex too, but I don't think she uses it for anything specific. Like you were talking about groceries or something like that. Is that all Amex, or was that the card? Or
yeah, it's an Amex card that, again, I opened it for the initial bonus, and I realized, I get this benefit on groceries, and I do like to have 2 credit cards in my wallet, and it's more than anything, it's a differentiator. So it's through 2 different companies. It's it's Chase and it's Visa and Amex. So that way, there's certainly places Amex is not accepted. So it gives me a little bit of versatility. Also, if I have issues with one card, at least I pull the next one out and I have something on me. It's more of a comfort thing. I don't like walking around with one form of payment.
Yep. Same here. Okay. And I mentioned I just opened a United card, but typically, before that, I had not opened a new credit card in a while. I did see like so many bonuses out there, and I'm like, you know what? I haven't opened a new card in like 6 years or something. Like it's probably fine. I could deal with the extra admin, like setting up another card, blah, blah, blah. So it was all good. And I, quickly was able to earn the points. So have you opened cards for bonuses and such?
Yeah, I've done that in the past quite a bit. We, when we first recognized the whole credit card hacking game. I started looking into it, learning more about it. For years I was tentative. I heard about it, but I'm like, oh, that's going to ruin my credit score, all these things. And you guys can listen to a heck of a lot of podcasts and read up on these from the experts, but it doesn't ruin your credit score. It actually helped my wife's credit score. There were a lot of hesitations that people have. I had the same hesitations. I overcame that. And in the beginning, we opened up multiple credit cards. And usually once we hit the spend limit, we'd go to the next one. But you can knock out the low-hanging fruit pretty quickly. And now I draw the benchmark of if it's not adding $500 bonus at least that value in terms of points or dollars, it's not worth the hassle. So I look for that minimum. I don't, even if there were 3 cards out there right now that I could do that with, I probably wouldn't go after them. It's more, one thing that I've started to implement is I don't escrow my insurance. For me, that's a lot because I have multiple rental properties. But insurance in general, you can pay with a credit card without any fees. So it's a really good opportunity. If you know your insurance hits every May, I'd be looking a couple months before that to open up a new card. That way, if you open it up 2 months before, you'll get the card, you'll have it in your hand when that insurance hits. And that's an easy way to hit a minimum spend. So that's what I do every year is okay, insurance comes in May. I'm going to open up a new card. What's hot right now? What's got the biggest sign up bonus? And next year it may be United. And then that's just an easy thing to do because I can pretty much hit that spend in one fell swoop, or even if we don't have that big of an insurance, payment, 3 months to spend $3,000 to $5,000. Most people can do that pretty easy. So the once a year method, I think is appropriate. It gives you all the points, a lot of points. It helps you keep them rolling in, but it's not something you have to manage. Keep doing it over and over and canceling cards.
Can you pay the property taxes with a credit card?
You can, but they hit you with a fee. So I know people that have done it. I've done it myself once, and sometimes the fee offsets it. So, for example, Southwest Companion Pass is extremely valuable to me and my family because a family of 4, we fly back to Ohio twice a year. So if I have buy one, get one free flights, that's huge. And actually last year, our Companion Pass, I had it for a couple of years, then it lasted for 2 years, and then Jamie got it for a couple of years, and then I got it again. But we were flying in March. We had a flight back to Ohio for a wedding. So I had to get Companion Pass ASAP. So I deemed it worth it I opened up 2 credit cards, and I had to hit the minimum spend on 2 credit cards within a month, essentially, month and a half, to make sure that it all registered and was in effect by the time we flew. So I actually put my property taxes on the credit card, and I think it was $76 or something in a fee. But I actually ended up having 2 flights that I was able to benefit from being able to make that spend faster. So I had several $100s of benefits, and it cost me $76, I think, in that fee because I had to bump it up a little bit to, pay those property taxes, just to get that benefit.
And you mentioned that Jamie, your wife, her credit score went up by opening cards. So I think I know why, but can you explain?
So she had a poor credit score through college, like a lot of people do. And then she had a medical bill that lapsed and she didn't even know about it. It went to her parents' house and she never even knew. So, long story short, she had not a great credit score, not a terrible, but we spent the first couple years of our marriage, her credit score barely budged. I was paying the bills. The credit card was in my name and she was, just tacked onto that credit card. Mm-hmm. So she didn't have one in her own name. The bills were all in my name just because I was the one that set them up. She would even, pay them on her card or manage them, but I just happened to be the one that set them up. So the bills are in my name, everything like that. And it took a couple years for us to see her credit score wasn't going up. That's weird. And she opened up we started this credit card thing, and she opened up, got a card in her name, and it was, between that, and she did also start putting some bills in her name once she recognized it. But the credit card, her limit was low, but instantly you could see that she was paying it off every month, that her credit started going up. So actually it was a good thing for her to start into this, because otherwise she would have never opened up other credit cards that she didn't really need. And that actually built up some repertoire with the credit card companies, and her credit score went up.
Ah, got it. And I was thinking it was potentially the percentage of the credit limit that you're using. So they like to see, I think.
Yeah, that is part of it. So she opened up one, she opened up another, and then so she got increased that limit. And, at first she had like a $500 limit or something. And then now if she signs up for a card, she'll get like a $30,000 limit.
Right.
But to have that open credit that's you're not spending on it is good in their eyes.
Yep. Cool.
Or you're able to pay it off.
Very cool. All right. Any other ideas or tips or, ideas about your approach to credit card points, travel rewards, stuff like that?
No, I think that, again, if people want the technical details, and I think what we're here to do is say there's a range. You don't have to go off the deep end and open up every credit card out there for, 50 bonus points. Everyone does it a little bit differently, but it's not something to be scared of. It's something that's pretty easy to get your toes in the water and experiment with. And I've flown back to Ohio twice a year with a family of 4 for 4 years and haven't paid a dime. So other than a $10 flight fee.
Nice. Yep. And I'm definitely on the more basic side. And I think, you don't do too much, but you do a little bit more than me. We were talking before we started recording. There's a podcast called All the Hacks, and it's like optimizing life. But part of it is this guy is kind of, I don't know if obsessed is too big of a word, but he's super interested in optimizing like accumulation of points and redeeming points and, not wasting anything along the way. So he goes really deep, and I mean, the extra effort, is paid off. But I don't particularly enjoy it, and he does. So
right.
Yeah, big range of, what you want to do. And I will potentially open, maybe a new card every couple years. I don't enjoy like going through the process, even though it's fairly quick, but just having to, make sure you transfer all your expenses to a specific card so you can hit the amount. And I actually did find myself like coming up towards the end of the 6-month period. And I was like, oh, there were a couple expenses that I thought were going to hit that didn't yet. So I actually called like a software company where I have an annual plan, and I was like, can you charge me now instead of 1 month from now? And they were like, sure, we can do that. And they did it. It was like $2,000.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that you can do. You could go spend $2,000 in gift cards at the grocery store for the grocery store. You're going to spend $2,000 in a grocery store over the next couple months, maybe.
Yeah.
So you could do that to hit your limit. There's a lot of things that you can do that, I had another example, but I can't think of it right now, but there are ways. Oh, the other one is we tend to pair our cards. This is just another tidbit that you can research and find, but I'll open up a card, and then once we hit my spend limit, sometimes we'll open up 2 cards, because then Jamie will open up the same card, but I will refer her. So I get an extra 20,000 points, refer her, she opens it, she gets the bonus, and the referral back and forth is a game you can play if you and your spouse are doing this.
Yeah, hopefully Chase doesn't listen to this show. So
See, that's the thing. They know people do this, and they don't even care because so many people sign up for these bonuses and then end up going over. That's the thing. You have to pay your bills or else it washes all this away. But they get so many people to sign up for these cards with these bonuses. They know people like us are out there that take advantage of it, but they don't care because they make so much money on their fees. And then especially someone will rack up $3,000 and they won't pay for a month, and boom, that pays for a lot of what their, this marketing cost is essentially what they write it up as.
And one more thought, and then we'll wrap it up here. So one thing that I'm trying to do now is just like use the fucking points, because like they're just sitting there and I'm like hoarding it, and it's like, it's money, right? Like it has a cash value that I could redeem back, and inflation hits, like it makes you look at things just a little bit differently. And I'm like in my head thinking I'm going to save these points for a big trip and then redeem them. Or I can get the money now, do whatever I'm going to do, and just like move on with my life instead of having like a bank of points, which are largely, it's just a number on a screen at this point, right? Yeah.
So why save? If you're going to travel, maybe don't travel for the heck of it just to burn up points. But if you're going to travel and you have points, or you can use dollars, use the points, because then if you get to the point where you don't have the points, you're going to use the dollars anyways. So why not use them now instead of later? Don't bank them for this big trip. But some people like to do that. Some people want to
the game,
do the Disney trip all for free and claim they went to Disney for free. Okay, it makes for a goal, I guess.
and good like Instagram or TikTok reel,
Right.
but, you know, like that's where I see it. And I'm like, oh, I've actually done like a lot of trips for quote free, but yeah, I don't do the social media stuff so much. Okay, cool. So Jake, you're over on Twitter. You don't check it too often, and otherwise you're off the radar. You don't have a website, nothing.
No, I don't. No website, no anything else. Twitter, Phi Dilettante. You could reach me on. Maybe I should start something. I've always thought about that. I'm not social, I guess.
No. Yeah, you don't need to. You're living your life. That's totally fine. So if you do want to send Jake a message, you could shoot Carl or I an email, Doug@milehify.com or Carl@milehify.com. Our store is open, so you can get t-shirts like the one I'm wearing. There's mugs. There are boxer shorts, other products out there. I think there's a water bottle too. It's milehify.com/store, and that'll send you off to the right spot. So thanks, Jake. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Doug.
Thanks for listening to the show. That was the Mile High Fi podcast, and I'm Doug Cunnington, the balder host, and Carl Jensen is the cool, sexy one. If you dig the show, please do 3 things for us. Number 1, tell a friend, a family member, an enemy about the show. We really don't care who you tell. Maybe forward them a specific show that you know that they will like. It's the single most helpful thing that you can do to spread the word. It's like giving us a virtual high five, and actually we don't give high fives in person, so the virtual kind's pretty good. And more importantly, your friend or family member or even your enemy will appreciate the fact that you were thinking of them. Number 2, make sure you're following or subscribed on your podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube, whatever you're using, and that way you won't miss a show. And number 3, please leave us a rating and review. We read them on the show occasionally, and you might hear yours out there on an upcoming episode. Quick disclaimer, this show is not financial or legal advice. I'd actually be surprised if it sounded like it. It's really just for entertainment, and that's at least what we're hoping for. But seriously, get advice from professionals. Carl and I are just 2 guys with microphones that sit in my basement and talk. So we'll catch y'all next week.